Hello everyone, Tyler King here with a new episode of NuReview. Today I wanted to do something that I haven't done before on the show, which is a review of a concert that I went to. And that was Gary Numan last week at the Fillmore in San Francisco. This was I want to say my ninth time seeing him. If you don't count the time that I saw Nine Inch Nails in 2009 and they brought Gary Numan out towards the end of the set. Um, this was, I think, the third time I've seen him at the Fillmore. My first time seeing him there was in 2010 for the Pleasure Principle legacy shows, and I also saw him there in 2017 for the Savage tour. And this was, I think, my first time back at the Fillmore since that show of his in 2017. Um, Fortunately, things are starting to open up a little bit. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. Things are still pretty crazy in the world. Um, so it was really good to be back. I had a lot of reservations going into this show. In case you haven't seen my review of the latest Gary Numan album, Intruder, I'm not a big fan of it. Um, Honestly, if I were to rank all of the Gary Numan albums now, which I have done before, but I did that before his last couple of albums came out. So if I were to do it now, Intruder would probably be in my bottom five Gary Numan albums. I really do not like that album. And having seen Gary really since Splinter and Savage have come out, I know that when he tours for those albums, he tends to dedicate a good amount of the set list to songs from those albums. So, we're going to talk about that in just a second. First, I wanted to say I got there about 20 minutes before doors opened, and I was able to get front row in front of the guitarist who was not Steve Harris for this show. I'm not sure who it was. It may have been Steve's guitar tech. Regardless, he still did a stand-up job. I can't necessarily speak to how hard or easy some of these songs are to play. I would imagine that material from Replicas or possibly Telecon would be a little bit harder to play than stuff from more recent albums, because those albums actually tended to be written mostly with the guitar in mind. So he did a great job. Replacing Tim Muddiman on bass, who made an announcement that he is no longer going to be touring with Gary, was, I want to say it was Tim Slade on bass, who did an amazing job. It was very interesting because of all of the Gary Numan shows I've been to in the past, really Tim Muddiman has been the only consistent member in Gary's band since I've seen him. So it was a little interesting to see Gary without him. And then rounding up the lineup was, I believe, David Brooks on keyboards and Richard Beasley on drums. Now, I'm also, all of this is very just off the cuff, spur of the moment stuff. I haven't really prepared this, so I'm already getting ahead of myself. I do, real quick, before I talk about Gary Numan's set, want to talk about the opener, I Speak Machine. I saw I Speak Machine opening for Gary at his residency at the Terragram Ballroom in 2016. So I've seen them. This will now be my fourth time, and all of those shows at the Terragram, the musician member of I Speak Machine, Tara Bush, was kind of confined in this wall of synthesizers that she had around her, whereas at this show, she was jumping around the stage, she was crouching, she was like getting very close to the audience. She was much more energized, and it felt like she's become a lot more confident as a performer, and that really showed through in her performance. I like, even if you don't like Gary Numan, which if you're watching this channel, I don't know why you're watching this channel, but if you don't like him or you don't like his last couple of albums like me, still go, if anything, just to see I Speak Machine, because they were absolutely phenomenal. So now on to Gary's set. I really hate the look of this era of Gary Numan with the three red stripes down his face. I think it's really lame that all of the members of the band have variations of this, and I've been feeling like I felt like this with the tour for Savage, where they were all dressed like the Mummy. Um, for me, it's just really cringy looking. They also seem to be wearing like the exact same outfit, which I'm sure 100% was a decision on Gary's choice on Gary's part. Um, so just like when they came out and I saw this, I was like, great. Like, this is like, when I saw him touring for Savage, that was not my favorite show of his I've ever seen. So them all coming out dressed like this with the makeup on and the outfit and everything, I was kind of like, all right, great. I'm in for another round of what I got last time. And I was very quickly kind of proven wrong. Um, they opened the show with the title track of the new album, Intruder, which I would not have expected would be the opening song. So that kind of surprised me. Um, it's performed well. Um, it's not my favorite song on the new album. It's fine. They played Metal next, which is probably my single favorite Gary Numan song, and they did it the same way that they've been doing it for years now. Actually, I was able to get a set list, so this will be going off of that. The Promise, which was played well. Again, it's not my favorite song on the Intruder album. Everything Comes Down to This, which I thought was a very wise decision to keep that song still in the set list, because, I mean, first of all, I do really like that song, but I also like the dynamics that that song has, which I know is something that Gary has been doing for a long time, in the sense that like it'll be a very quiet verse and then very loud chorus. But I think that Everything Comes Down to This is one of the better instances of him utilizing that sort of thing. Films played very well. I very much enjoyed Tim Slade's bass playing of this one live. Ghost Nation, could take it or leave it. I honestly, if I were going to keep a song from Savage on the set list, it would probably be Bed of Thorns. I just think it's a better song, and I think that Ghost Nation is a bit too samey with a lot of the other stuff that he's playing on this tour. Now, somewhere around here, because it's not on the set list, and I remember Gary went over to Tim, and you could see him mouth the words, "Your set list is wrong." And then he came over to the guitarist, and he was about to say that, and then he kind of looked at the guitarist set list and was like, "Oh no, never mind, your set list is right." But they played Pressure from Jagged, which is a song I never really expected to see him play. It's kind of become a forgotten song from that album as far as when he plays live. Like, usually he's only playing Halo or Haunted or the title track from that album. So for him to pull that song out, it was definitely the biggest surprise of the set for me. I thought that he played it well. Um, and something else that I have to say about this performance as a whole was that usually San Francisco is played towards the tail end of his North American tours, if not it being the last show of his North American tours. So this being the second show, it was very refreshing to see Gary a bit more energetic than he usually is by the time that they get to San Francisco. Of course, I've seen a couple of one-off shows he's done. I've seen that 3-day residency at the Terragram. So I have seen him with more energy, and it was nice to see that level again because I didn't really get that the last time I'd seen him for the Savage tour. Um, Next was Love Hurt Bleed, probably my least favorite song from Splinter. I do really wish that he would stop playing this song. Uh, it really feels almost like a parody of a Gary Numan song at this point. Um, I've made the point before, particularly in my review of his last album, that like one of his lyrical tropes he's fallen into is about things bleeding. And I mean, he says that 40 times in this fucking song. Um, so, I mean, I would love to see him replace this song with something like A Shadow Falls on Me, even though I know he's only played that a handful of times. Or possibly We're the Unforgiven. Or maybe something from the album he's never played before, like Who Are You? I I get why he plays it because it was really like the single from that album, but it's really getting a little old for me at least. Next was Pray for the Pain You Serve, and this was a song I'd honestly completely forgotten about from the Savage album. But seeing him play it, I did enjoy it a lot more than the last time I saw him perform. Next was The Gift, which is probably my favorite song from the Intruder album, so that was very nice. Next was a 1-2 punch of the classics with Down in the Park and Cars. They're fine. Um, Personally, I don't think he needs to play Cars anymore. I understand why he does, particularly in North America, because that is his biggest hit here. But it really sticks out like a sore thumb, especially compared to other songs from the Pleasure Principle that he will play and like transpose into his current more like industrial sound, songs like Metal or Films or Me when he plays it. And Cars I don't think translates well at all to that kind of music. So I understand why he plays it. I just wish he wouldn't anymore, if that makes sense. Next was Here in the Black. Um, Maybe the best performance I've seen of him do it. This was never a favorite song from the Splinter album, but this was a really good performance of it. I really enjoyed it. The Chosen, which was from that EP he came out with after Savage, whose name I completely forget. Honestly, I don't think I did a video for that EP on this channel because none of the songs on it really did anything for me, and so at first I was like, oh shit, he's playing a new song, and then I was like, wait a minute, I know I've heard this song before. And I forgot what it was from until I got the set list afterwards. Next was My Name Is Ruin, which still works live. There is a keyboard bit in it that reminds me a lot of the keyboard part of Love Hurt Bleed. That dun 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 dun. It sounds like it's straight from Love Hurt Bleed because there's a keyboard part that's in that song that is like 95% similar. I might have mentioned that in my review for Savage. I forget. And then closing the main set with Our Friends Electric, he messed up the lyrics a few times, which was kind of funny to see, because like of all the songs to mess up the lyrics for, like it's gotta be like the one you've played probably more than any other song in your catalog. I just thought it was kind of funny. Um, then they all went off stage, did a little encore break, which was really only maybe like 60 seconds. It was not a long encore break. And the encore consisted of Me I Disconnect From You, which was also a surprise because this was my first time seeing him, um, besides those Teragram shows where so if you don't know what those Teragram shows were, the first night he did replicas from front to back, second night he did Pleasure Principle front to back, third night he did Telecon front to back, and for the rest of the set only played songs from 1978 through 1980. And he played Me I Disconnect From You, I want to say all three of those nights. But besides those shows, this is the first time I've seen him do it in a sort of more like regular set list. So that was very exciting. That was also kind of a big surprise. And then he closed the show with a prayer for the unborn. And I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it on this channel, but I know I've said it before, which is like, it seems in poor taste to continue to kind of like pour salt in that wound that you have in regards to what that song is about. Now again, I'm not Gary Numan. I'm not his wife. I'm not a member of his family. I don't know if those scars have healed. But it just seems kind of tasteless to keep playing this song. Especially as a show closer, it's a very downer song to end a show on. I think that maybe it would work better as maybe like the second of three songs in an encore, but to end a show with it really ends it in a somber mood. Personally, I think that maybe if then he were to play something like I Die, You Die, that would have been a better closer, but I mean, I've also seen him play, like, I've seen him close shows with that song a lot of times before. And yeah, that was the show at the Fillmore. Um, my cat wants to say hello. Hi. Okay. Um, Personally, I think that if you were seeing him for the first time, this is a great set list because you get the classics and you also get, quote unquote, like the hits from the last few albums. I also hi, hello. What are you doing? I also do like that he didn't play a lot from Intruder because I do not like that album. So it was nice to see him only play three songs from it. Um, Personally, I'm just getting a little tired of seeing him playing the same three songs from The Pleasure Principle, the same two songs from Replicas. Now it's the same two or three songs from Splinter. And still doing A Prayer for the Unborn. I think that, like the few surprises that were in the set list were genuine surprises because it was him like changing things around, playing older songs that he doesn't necessarily play very often. And I would really love to see him do that. Like, maybe from Replicas, play Me I Disconnect From You and something like Praying to the Aliens. Maybe from Pleasure Principle, like if you have to play Cars, but play something else. Play like Me or Tracks or Engineers. If you want to keep playing a song from Pure, play something like Listen to My Voice or even the title track, which I've seen him do a few times, but it always works live. It's always this very like triumphant song. So, did I enjoy the show? Surprisingly, yes. I went in with low hopes and I was very pleasantly surprised. This was definitely the loudest I've seen him play, which was very surprising. Again, it was very energetic. You could tell that he's really feeling these songs, which is great. And even though the band was not as animated as I've seen them in the past, they still played the songs very well. Um, I think that he plays for about an hour, 20 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. So you're definitely getting your money's worth, I think. And, like with the pandemic coupled with, Gary's age, he might not be on the road for, too much longer. I mean, fortunately, I've been able to see him about 9 times over the last 12 years at this point. Wow, I feel old saying that. Um, but, if you live in a part of the country that does not rhyme with uh, Smellifornia, then you might not get the chance to see him as often as I do, which is completely understandable. And so if you're on the fence about seeing him on this tour, I would recommend going. If anything, he does play enough of the older songs, if that's more of your thing, to keep you interested. And of the newer songs he plays, I will say that he plays most of my favorites from his last few albums, with a couple of exceptions. So I would very much recommend going to see Gary Numan on this tour. Um, I don't really want to rate a show because that's kind of weird, but it was definitely, I don't know if I would call it one of the best shows of his I've seen, because I've seen him play some really great shows. But it's definitely not one of the worst shows of his I've seen. Um, yeah, I would just recommend going to see him this time around. So, what do you think? Have you seen Gary yet on this tour? Are you planning on seeing him on one of his future dates over the next month or so? Are you planning on just skipping out on this tour entirely? If so, I would really like to know why, and I would really like to know what show or shows you are going to, if you're planning on going, in the comments below. If you do want to get access to videos like this early, I do have a Patreon account. I would love it if you could maybe take a look at that. If you're interested in subscribing to it, you do get early access to all of my videos before they go live on YouTube, as well as things like exclusive reviews, being able to vote on future video content, and I would just love to see you there. And until next time, I am Tyler King with NuReview. Keep listening to great music.